Welcome back, team, on the journey to transform culture. I'm Steve, and I'll be your guide. Well, team, today we're going to talk about this will be part one of organizational transition. And this can be from any perspective, really individual, a professional, uh, brand new worker to the workforce. This could be the team at large. This could be any leader in the organization and the organization as a whole. But we're going to start from the approach of the individual and probably the hiring team just to start the process of this conversation. So, first of all, what do we mean by organizational transition? Organizations can be at many stages of their development. They could be organizations who are struggling badly. They may be short of many personnel. They may be building up. They may be startups. They may be organizations that have been around for a while, but they're going through significant changes, right? So it could be a restructuring of the organization. It could be physical restructuring. It could be taking on new products, new service. There's such a myriad of differences that could be happening at any given time for many organizations. But what we're going to do is we're going to look at this from the perspective of somebody perhaps looking at your organization, or if it's you looking at an organization to become a member of a team, to be able to figure out uh, during organizational transition, right, which an individual also applies in this case, if this organization and you are right for each other, right? So let's get started. And I'm going to break this down into 7 categories, and then we'll talk a little bit about each to show you how you can kind of gauge, the culture, and obviously the culture of the person potentially coming onto your team. So first of all, we want to look at tone. What is the tone of people in the organization? Is it a tone of, where there's a tone of respect in their communications? Is it uplifting? Is it motivated? Is it, are people, from what you see and what you're hearing primarily, are you getting the sense that the tone is not sarcastic? People aren't talking down to you, they aren't being rude, right? What is the tone? Or to each other, right? So if you're joining an organization and you see others talking badly about other folks who aren't in that particular group at the time, or the the communication essentially is maybe a little downturned regarding other people or other situations within that organization, this should be a clue of tone. The tone also could be in the way they communicate in the emails and leave messages for you as well. Um, but that being said, if you're the individual, always remember they're going to be looking at your tone as well, right? To see if you have the humility as well as that they do. If they have, hopefully they have humility. But tone is significant, right? And you can kind of gauge this as humans. We're continuously gauging tone in conversation and interactions with people all the time. You're an expert at this, even if you don't think you are. You are. Next, body language and environment. I kind of group these together, body language and environment, but it kind of stems off of tone a little bit, right? So if the body language also kind of shows, my kids are grown now, but teenagers, the big eye roll, the whatever. Does this organization have the whatever going on? Where there's sarcasm, being funny and having a good time, and then there's sarcasm that turns into kind of a, um, you know, uh, kind of a dismissiveness, right? As we've talked about in previous videos, a diminishing or dismissiveness, or a looking down upon each other or the organization as a whole, and vice versa. If the organization, if the body language of the leadership team, and the team members or individuals, anyone really, if the body language is such that it's not coming from a place of real genuine authenticity, dealing with the work that they do and who they are and what they're about, then that should be something that you take note of. This is another area where you should be a pretty good expert in the world to see body language, because we've all been treated poorly at some point, whether that be tone from communication that we just spoke about, or body language to go with it. The next one is open communication. Is an organization open? Do they have transparency in what they talk about amongst each other? Or is it a lot of like corner whispering and murmuring, right? You don't know if this is rumor control. You don't know if this is controlled information. You don't you don't know, right? So if there's a poor, I would even say that if the communication not only being open, but if it's not conducted in appropriate ways, if you're going to have a private conversation, go sit in a private office or conference room, right? Otherwise, you're sending signals, and when you're sending signals, right, that goes back to environment. Oh, and let me backtrack a little because I paired body language and environment together. Don't forget too how an organization keeps its site, its facilities, um, how people conduct themselves, right? Not only is that a body language thing, but it is also telling you if they don't care about their environment and they don't care about the body language they display, they're sending a signal that they probably don't care that much about the customer or you potentially later on down the road, right? So keep that in mind. Okay, let me get caught back up to speed. Back to open communication. Is the communication open? Are they transparent? Do they own? Do they in their communication? Do they own where they're struggling? Do they own where they actually are? Or do you feel like you're getting sold? Right? We've all been. I've been on the other side of a salesperson, and there's appropriate ways to sell, and then there's arm twisting, overt and aggressive ways of selling. And what are they coming across like? Is their sales, is their organization kind of a sales pitch on a daily basis? Now, it's one thing to have themes and to have vision and all these things, but it is another thing not to be authentic and not to be genuine. All right, number 4, now that we're back on track. Number 4, are they passionate? Are they passionate about their customers and the product and service that they're providing? Do they get excited? Are they motivated to, hey, we got this new thing we're doing, whatever. There's so many different variations of what could be going on, right? We're making this new thing, this new space shuttle or whatever it is. Hey, we got this new software and it's going to help so many people. Or, do they get excited and connect the dots? Are you seeing that passion come through within how this team communicates? And obviously it's going hopefully it'll bleed through too in how they communicate and the body language and of course the environment, right? So all this is a building. So do they have passion about what they're doing? The next part is kind of similar to that, but do they have a growth mindset? Is this group coachable or are they kind of stuck in the mud? And this really depends on the stages of where the organization is. So if it's an organization who is struggling and they're trying to get back to a normalcy, then obviously they should be clinging to a growth mindset to get back to normal. But if they think they're normal, and the whole forming, storming, norming, and performing, a lot of organizations think they're norming and they're really storming constantly. So if this organization has a growth mindset, they understand that when they add or subtract people from the team, which you may be one, that's going to create an adjustment for the entire team to kind of assimilate you in, I guess you could say, to integrate you into the operation and how everything flows, and also so that you can also take part in becoming part of the team. But that growth mindset is super important because there are a lot of folks who have goals and they want to be, we want our organization to get, we're here now and we want to get over to here, point A, point B, point C, and so on. It's one thing to have this expectation, and it's another to do nothing to grow your team or to have a team that doesn't want to grow. So if you're the new person coming in, or potentially if you're the person who's checking out an organization to see if they have a growth mindset, and you see that they're kind of dragging along, they're not really excited about it, and it's also polluting the passion that they are having toward the product and service that they do, right? So again, these things are building. But having that growth mindset means that part of the thing that they're passionate about is the growing within an organization. So it might be your knowledge, skills, and abilities, individually, but it also might be something really neat for the team, or some really cool new aspect of the business. I don't know. There's literally an infinity of examples that could be thrown in there, but if they don't have a growth mindset and it's just business as usual, people are just showing up, punching a clock, not literally punching a clock, but they're watching the clock until it strikes, whatever time of day you finish work. And because they just want to get out of there. And that's another thing about a growth mindset. A growth mindset is looking around, looking for opportunities to grow, not just themselves as individuals, but also the team and the facility, the capabilities of the site, and so on. So that growth mindset is super huge. And also, are they coachable? Kind of alongside or within underneath that growth mindset is coachability. And how do you know if you're coachable? Are you coachable if you're coming into a new organization? If you're coachable, you're humble. You have a kind of a youthful way of seeing things, a brand new way of seeing things, a fresh way of looking at things to go, oh wow, what could we do here? What's the possibility, right? And then you combine that with the passion of doing and providing new cool things or services, and that passion bleeds through. And that is a growth mindset. So again, these are layered. Next, do they believe in the vision? Right? So if the organization has a vision, we're going to be the best watchmaking, we want to provide the coolest watches ever, whatever, insert your own vision for your own company. But if you're not in line with that vision and the organization doesn't believe in the vision that they have stamped all over their paperwork and above doorways and that sort of things, you hear this going a few rungs down, although vision and quality statement aren't necessarily the same, but it would be the similar idea. If their quality statement is something that they have plastered up, but folks are kind of just whatever, it's window dressing. They aren't really living and breathing it because it's not part of the conversation. It's not part of the heartbeat of who they are and why they're there. They can become stagnant, and that's another thing that can happen if they don't believe in their vision. Stagnancy is easily seen, right? And you'll pick this up in all the other areas that we talked about. And so you want to look at, hey, are these folks stagnant? They're not growing, but they don't really kind of believe in the vision. They're not really on board with, and they're just showing up and then getting out of there when they can't. So these are things you want to look at. Number 7, do they care about the team? Do they care about each other? Is there a connectivity there? Are they engaged with one another? And can you feel it? Can you see it? Using these other areas, are you hearing it? Can you see it in their body tone, in their body language? Is it clear in their environment? Do they care that things are safe? Do they care that things are, people have provision and the resources they need to do the work? Are they looking out for one another in a healthy way? So that's super important. Do they care about the team? And from an organizational perspective, does the organization and the leadership? So if you're sitting there for an interview with 5 to 10 potentially, who knows how many folks you're sitting through a hiring sequence with, do you get the impression that they really care about the team? And if you've been taken on a tour, or if you get to be introduced and so forth, do you really get the impression? Are they congratulating so and so on their new child or their last accomplishment or whatever, or their kid graduated XYZ, at some college, whatever it is, it could be anything. But do they really take an interest in the people on their team? Do they really have a heartfelt connection? Because as I've talked in previous videos, that's another way of protecting love, caring about your team, protecting love. All of these fall into that sequence of things that should be existent in a healthy organizational culture. So the 7 areas are tone, body language and environment. How open is the communication? Are they passionate about their products and service? Customer, right? Are they passionate about the customer? Number 5, do they have a growth mindset? Are they coachable? 6, do they believe in their vision? You know, are they walking their talk and so on? And do they care about the team? Now, rate them, or the individual, if you're the organization, rate them. It could be on past experiences, 1 to 11, 1 to 11 each category. Okay. And then to keep the math simple this way, because there's 7 categories and 11, so 77 is your top. You can't go any higher than that. So 77 to 66, that's your A performing organization. 66 to 55, that's a B. And so on down the line, every 11. So it'll go 11, 22, 33, 44, 55, 66, and 77. And so this is where it becomes, and this is subjective, right? Because you're looking at it through your own lens. And what were you? You have to ask yourself, what were you? Rate yourself now of how you contributed at your last organization, right? And if you're the organization, assess the organization. So if you're a leadership team, or you're the leader of the team, and whether you've got 5 to 20 staff members, just depends, have them rate the organization as they see it. Don't have them put their names on it either, and take it in and do a quick little, survey, and establish where you were at, and have transparency and be clear about it, because you want to have the desire to grow, right? Part of that was the growth mindset, right? So if the number isn't high, then now you know what you have to work on. But also, if you're going checking out organizations, you know a little bit about what you're getting into. So in my previous experiences, I've improved organizations. So I go in there typically to help them. I mean, pretty much most of my civilian life, I've been doing that or been a leader. So if I'm coming into your organization, I'm a change agent. I'm going to help, and so you have to kind of expect that from me. But if you're going into an organization and they're getting a C, right? They're shooting 50, 50, 55. Well, perhaps your skills, knowledge, skills, and abilities are going to help them. And they may be telling you right out of the gate that, hey, we need help because we need to improve this or improve that. Well, that's fantastic. That's, that's the kind of clarity and transparency you want. You want to know what their goals and objectives and things that they need to overcome, constraints, organizational constraints are, so that you can help them. And that's fantastic going into it. But if you're a subject matter expert in a particular functional department, and you're going in there to do a specific task or job, and you're walking into a C performing organizational culture, you might think twice, because you're basically going to be on the middle part of of the bullwhip, right? If there's a lot of rising and lowering tides and waves in this organization, you might be getting tossed around a little bit, and you have to be aware of this. And it's the same thing for an organization. If the person is coming, because organizations have tons of criteria and tons of mechanisms and tools that they can look at. But if you keep it simple, you're trying to touch on what, is this person going to be a fit? And is this organization going to be a fit for me? Do I want a project? It's like a relationship. Do you really don't want a project? Unless you're a project person, then I guess you want a project, right? You're an engineer. I want a project. That's what you do, projects, right? So, but if you're expecting a turnkey and you just want to walk in, start working, if they're grade really low, then you better think twice. And so when you're evaluating by the criteria we talked about today, you want to be very critical, right? To yourself, obviously. You're not going to wave this around. This is going to be something you're going to look at and assess for yourself. But you want to be critical, because it's going to tell you, once you tally it up, where they actually sit. Also, while you're doing all this, assess your last organization. Did your last organization, what were they performing, right? So is this an improvement? It might be an improvement in particular areas, but maybe it's not an improvement in all areas, or, whatever. It may be different. And are you prepared for that difference? Is that difference something you can live with? So this is kind of a subjective yet qualitative way for you to assess I call it organizational transition because organizations can be in many forms, many stages of growth, many stages of, disrepair even. Many state are they, geared for the long haul, um, or are they not? Are they coachable? Do they have a growth mindset? If they don't have a growth mindset, but yet they have this long vision of being, the best, best in class in the industry, yet they don't even show up on the radar right now. Their goals aren't necessarily aligned with the practical and pragmatic area of their performance. Then you have to kind of assess, okay, what's really going on here. And keep in mind, these are more symptoms of deeper issues if they score low, right? If you're being subjective and you score them a 9 or a 10 or an 8, yeah, that's probably just flavor. But if you're grading somebody, 1 through 6 or 1 through 7, well, what are the deeper issues driving some of these things to be a low score? That's really for an organization to assess itself to figure out, oh, how do we improve the organizational culture? All right, folks, hit that good domino 1 to 5 times a day to help uplift, inspire, motivate, and just help somebody out. When we do this, we're transforming culture, but we're also transforming ourselves, and that's a good thing. Hit like, share, and subscribe. We'll do this again. We'll do another one of these type of videos, a part 2 and a part 3 later on, because there's a lot to delve into, and we'll go a little bit further below the waterline to get into some of the, we'll get closer to some of the root cause areas. All right, folks, have a great day. We'll talk to you next time. See you later.